Great. Well, hello everybody and welcome. As you probably can tell, am not Delegate Charkoudian, but she is unable to be here. So as the House Vice Chair of the caucus, I will be moderating today's briefing. And so we are excited to have some really great speakers to talk to us about transit. And I am not going to take up your time because I know you're here to listen to them. So I'm going to turn it over right now to MTA Administrator Holly Arnold. Thank you for being here.
Okay, hey, good to see everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. I always really enjoy presenting to the Transit Caucus every year and the fantastic questions that we have. I'm going to share my screen, and I think everyone should be able to see that, and I'll do it in presentation mode. So yes, again, appreciate the opportunity to present. There is a lot going on in transit in Maryland and at MTA. So I'm going to go pretty high level through some major initiatives, but if I did not hit on something you were hoping for me to hit on, please ask, because if I presented on everything we were doing, we'd be here all week. For the record, my name is Holly Arnold, and I'm the administrator at MTA. I did want to highlight some recent accomplishments that we've had at the agency, really focused on advancing our capital investments and making sure that we're investing in state of good repair. So we did launch our light rail modernization program. The Purple Line construction is now 87%. I think the newer report will show 89% complete. And we recently put our new Metro rail cars in service, and I'll have more on each of those in a bit. And we're also planning for the future. We put out a number of plans that outline the vision and what we're aiming for across transit in Maryland for the coming years. We've been prioritizing public safety at the agency. So we've implemented a number of safety initiatives. One key one last fall was we launched our rider code of conduct and our exclusion policy. And I do want to thank the General Assembly for passing the legislation that enabled that. At the same time, we also launched our CSAY app, a very discreet app that you can have on your phone. If you see something happening on a bus or a train, you can report it directly to MTA Police Dispatch without having to obviously be on the phone. Got a lot of good feedback on that so far. We launched a partnership with Baltimore City to have naloxone at our rail stations, Metro in particular, and we're looking to expand that further. And we did receive national recognition from the American Public Transportation Association for our bus emergency management training that we do with our first responders. On the crime side, our Part 1 crimes are down 50% over the past decade, and we are seeing some of the lowest crime rates that we've ever had at the agency. In 2025, no homicides or rapes on the system. We continue to save lives every year by administering Narcan or naloxone. And we are improving our clearance rate for serious crimes. So if something does happen on the system, MTA Police do an excellent job of making sure that they are catching that person. We're also trying to make the system easier to use by updating our fare policy so that it kind of, have to think about it quite as much. We now allow for any student under or any child under 12 to ride for free, and Baltimore City school students can ride anytime. They used to be kind of limited to morning school hours and afternoon school hours, which we heard made it harder to go to practice or go get a second job, and so now they can ride anytime with their school ID. We expanded the free transfer window from 90 minutes to 2 hours, again, allowing folks to get to and from places a little bit easier. And then we most recently launched our MARC Student Saver program. We previously had a program that was run by a third party. They went kind of under, and so we took it on and are running it ourselves as staff now. Within the first couple of weeks, we've had 1,200 signups, so it has been very popular for people taking advantage of that regional asset, and we're excited to allow them to do it. We're also focused on improving our budget performance. We want to be good stewards of public dollars and deliver better service and deliver on the initiatives that we're promising. And so on our operating budget side, we closed fiscal year 2025 within 0.2% of our spending plan, really focusing on management of our overtime and inventory and doing a lot of data analysis to help with our budget tracking. And then on the capital side, we closed fiscal year 2025 at 97% of the final CTP. So we spent 97% of the dollars that were allocated to us. And it's really focused on state of good repair and enhancement and improving the reliability of the system. Our spending on state of good repair in particular is up 24% year over year and has continued to increase each year since fiscal year 2021. And we're delivering on that through the capital needs inventory. We are required by legislation to update our capital needs inventory every 3 years. And we released the most recent update in July of 2025. The total funding expected for MTA has really grown since the last update in 2022. And 90% of MTA's needs are met in the 6-year program. And that really is thank you to the Moore Miller administration and the General Assembly for passing funding last year to allow us to meet those needs. And we're going to continue to make sure that we're delivering on the promises of the system and keeping the system in a state of good repair. I mentioned before, we're also planning for the future. And so we launched or updated our MARC growth and transformation plan, articulating a vision for expanded MARC service with additional future resources. And we did it a little bit different this time by kind of putting it into buckets of what could happen in 5 years, what could happen in 15 years, and kind of a more unconstrained plan. And the team has really dove in to start that kind of initial momentum. So our design is underway for the Penn Camden connector, which would allow us to have actual revenue service from the Penn line, connect the Penn and the Camden line into downtown Baltimore at Camden Yards. So open up a huge amount of opportunities for us there, more directly in downtown Baltimore. We love Penn Station, but it's a little bit further away from some of the job centers. So that's a really exciting one for us, and we received a discretionary grant to move that forward. We do cross honoring of our tickets with the VRE system in advance of us hopefully running service into Virginia once the Long Bridge is done. Our fleet plan is in development to kind of outline our needs long term so that people can have a good understanding of what the fleet's going to look like. And I do want to give a huge kudos to the team. We partnered with MBTA up in Boston, the T, on a dual mode electric battery locomotive procurement. And so that hit the streets last week, and we're going to be procuring at least 5 electric and battery capable locomotives so that those will work on the Penn line once the Frederick Douglass Tunnel is done and give us that flexibility to operate on some of the other lines. We're continuing to partner with Amtrak on the Frederick Douglass Tunnel and Susquehanna River Bridge. We completed our Brunswick Line third track feasibility study and are advancing work on the Silver Spring Turnback. And then again, up here in the Baltimore region, we started work at our Martin State maintenance yard to allow for additional capacity there. Sounds like kind of a minor project, but it does take the ability to move some of our train sets out of Penn Station and put them up at Martin State, which then gives more flexibility for additional service. So it's an exciting step forward there. On the core bus side, 80% of our ridership is on core bus, so we do spend a lot of time focused on that. Our Eastern Bus Division is built in the 1930s. It's our oldest one. It's not super efficient for our maintenance folks. They have to do some interesting things to get buses in and out of the shop. And so the latest CTP did fund $25 million for rehabilitation and structural repair there. So that is advancing, and we look to finalize design and advertise that towards the end of the year. On the zero emission bus side, we had our first 7 buses enter service January 2024, and we are purchasing additional ones for a total of 37 by 2027. We have started to receive our 2025 buses, and they're entering service now. A lot of good feedback from our operators about those. And we, again, planning for the future, launched the Be More Bus Plan, outlining, a visionary network with additional services there. And again, thanks to the administration and General Assembly, we have funding to purchase property for that, which is a really key step, because if you don't have the property, you can't do anything else. And so we're excited to move that forward too. I mentioned Metro rail cars earlier, and I would be remiss if I did not come back to it. This is a major, major investment in the system. Our current rail cars came when the system opened in 1983, which means they're now 42 years old, have reached the end of their useful life. And so we are continuing to receive new rail cars. We put the first ones in revenue service in early January. The feedback from riders when they walk on is really a bit of amazement and wonder at how great these new cars are, and just questions of when they're all going to be out there. So we're advancing those as quickly as we can to get them out there. They are built here in Maryland, in Hagerstown, so the facility out there. So again, even if you're not riding transit in Baltimore, you are benefiting from our investments. And then the parts actually ship in through the Port of Baltimore. So again, kind of that multimodal investment coming back into Maryland. We also have other state of good repair investments We just advertised last week for a major elevator replacement program on Metro. We're doing escalator replacements and making sure we're focused on platforms because we do want those cars to come into beautiful looking stations as well. On the light rail side, again, thanks to the funding in the administration and the Garvey bill, we have a fully funded program, $1.4 billion, to invest in the first major investment in light rail since it was built in the early 90s. I cannot overstate enough how much this is going to do for the system in terms of improving reliability, making it more modern so that the cars fit into the contacts, you can roll on, roll off, and will allow us to work with some of our other local jurisdictions to focus on TOD around the stations at the same time. So it really is transformational for the program. It does include kind of 5 tranches, and we are in market right now for 3 of them. So the vehicles and train control we've advertised, got a lot of really positive feedback and interest from the industry. Our stations and track upgrades, we've done an RFQ and are reviewing those now. And then the traction power substation, same thing, a lot of really positive feedback from industry on those. And we anticipate advertising for our Cromwell maintenance facility early this year. Again, planning for the future, we're working with Charles and Prince George's counties on Southern Maryland Rapid Transit. And we are advancing the planning and environmental linkages, or the PEL study, in coordination with those state and local partners. And the goal of that PEL study is really just to kind of speed up the environmental process so that we can complete NEPA on the alignment down there. We did field work in the public right away that'll help us again to accelerate that process. We held open houses in June and December from the public, and we got a lot of feedback on those. And we're meeting with our intergovernmental project committee throughout the spring, so that again we can partner closely with Prince George's and Charles counties on coming up with an alignment. And we anticipate that happening later this year. And then on the red line here in Baltimore, we are in the planning and preliminary engineering phase. We're continuing to progress a lot of the geotechnical work and all the other things that are needed for the NEPA document as we can continue to advance that project in the critical east-west connections that we have there. We do anticipate having additional community conversations about the best path forward sometime later this year. And the purple line is 89% complete. I think I said earlier, continues to chug along. I do want to note that that is construction, does not mean it's going to open when we hit 100%, but that will be the construction completion, which we're going to hit later this year. And we are thrilled to be at that point. All of the rail in Prince George's County is installed, and we are very close to having all of the rail in Montgomery County installed. So having that kind of last track will be very exciting. All of the majority of the overhead catenary system poles have been put up, and we're continuing to string the alignment there. We received all vehicles late last year, and they're undergoing kind of conditional acceptance and testing, and that's a lot of what's happening right now is the dynamic testing of those between New Carrollton and College Park, and we look forward to doing testing on the University of Maryland campus this spring as well. And we continue to engage with the businesses along the corridor. The website is constantly updated with information. You can kind of click on a station and see what businesses are around it so that you could go support those businesses. We've been doing more postcards and trying to do some social media kind of fun games of like, hey, go here, take some pictures, and you can enter into a contest. And the MDOT grant program has awarded $2 million, and we should be going out for the next round of that very soon as well. So we're committed to the $4 million and getting it out to businesses that are impacted as soon as we possibly can. So just to close out, our priorities are continue to maintain that capacity to spend the funding that is allocated to us, building on that recent momentum to ensure that we are delivering a safe, reliable system and investing in the state of good repair that we have. And then that safety critical work, including the light rail modernization program, to make sure that we can continue to deliver for the residents of Maryland. And that's the end of my slide presentation. So I'll stop sharing, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Great. Thank you so much. That was all very exciting and really, excited to see the progress being made on so many fronts. Did I understand you to say that the funds are in the budget to purchase property for the 5th bus division?
Yes.
That's
Yep.
great news. That's great
Yeah,
news.
no, locking it is hard to find a big enough property that's close enough to our service. So we have found we're negotiating with a property owner, and so that is such a really key step towards advancing that project. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, that's so that would be the first. You need the fifth bus division before you can start on the Be More bus. Is that correct? So this would be like
The
the first step towards that vision.
yeah, first step towards that vision, and it really is such a key step. And so we're grateful to the administration and the General Assembly for those fundings to advance that funding to advance that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to see the red line is still, moving forward. We'll get there someday.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Does anybody else have questions? Delegate Wims.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I wanted to say it was a great presentation, and I represent District 39, which is Upper Montgomery County pretty much. But there was one statistic that came out to me because for the last 30 years, I've been working with families who have unfortunately died from overdoses. And you had in your slide 200 lives were saved from using Narcan. I wanted to congratulate. That's like 200 families. When you stretch it out, that's 1,000 some people with loved ones. That is tremendous. And I just wanted to congratulate you on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we appreciate it. And I have to give such a shout out to the Maryland Department of Health
Yeah.
and Baltimore City Health Department for their partnership. And because they provide it, we just distribute and doing the same things in the stations. If anyone wants to come in and get it, and I have some in my book bag because you never know when
Yes.
someone might need help, and we want to make sure that we're equipping our people to help others around the state. So thank you for your work in that area as well.
That's really terrific. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, anything? All right. Well, I guess that's it. And thank you so much, Administrator Arnold, for your presentation and for all your work.
Thank you so much for having me.
So at this time, we have from the Council of Governments, I think I said that right. We have Deputy Executive Director Kanti Srikanth and Multimodal Planning Program Manager Thomas Harrington. So take it away.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you kindly for giving COG an opportunity to come brief you on a couple of our work activities. I'm joined here by my colleague Tom Harrington. So we plan to cover two topics. I will start off with briefing you on our most recent work on the transit systems, plural, not just metro, but something that involves MARC, that involves Montgomery County Bus, or Prince George's County Bus systems. And then my colleague Tom Harrington will brief you on some of the work that we've been doing on improving the safety outcomes on the region's roadways. As you all know, the number of fatalities and serious injury crashes on our roadway system, particularly in the metropolitan Washington system, is truly unacceptable and deplorable. The Transportation Planning Board has been working on how to bend that curve, how to get this in a better situation. So we'll be happy to share our work on that with you. So with that, I'm going to ask Tom to bring up the slides. And at the end, Tom and I are happy to answer any questions. So I can see the slides now, Tom. Next slide. So very briefly, I know I've presented to this caucus before, so some of you know about COG, but for our new members, just a word about who COG is. We are a council of governments that was established in 1957 by Maryland and the Maryland localities, Virginia localities, and the District of Columbia. And you see the area that we cover all the way from Frederick County to the north to Charles County in the south. We have a board where all of the elected officials from the local and state governments, and we also have federal agencies participating, and where the Council of Governments works on all different disciplines. We work on transportation, we work in climate, we work on housing, we work on homelessness, homeland security, public safety, that sort of thing. So there's a wide range of topics that we cover, and we have about 130 plus staff members on board working on all of these different topics. Next slide. And one of the key things that happens at the Council of Governments is there's a federal requirement for all metropolitan areas to establish a metropolitan planning organization. That without establishing such an organization, federal transportation funds will not be distributed to the states and local governments. For the Metropolitan Washington region, the Transportation Planning Board is that organization, and the Transportation Planning Board meets at the Council of Governments. So when Maryland jurisdictions become member of COG, they are also members of the Transportation Planning Board. And the Transportation Planning Board has the responsibility to develop long-range transportation plans at a minimum, looking 20 to 25 years into the future and assessing the transportation infrastructure that we have today, what we plan to have tomorrow, and to determine whether the future transportation infrastructure will be able to meet the mobility and accessibility demands that will be placed on this system. Next slide. So the Transportation Planning Board and the Council of Governments, they have been, and then we've been around for close to 60 years now. So there's been a series of efforts, and over a period of time, a set of regional goals and priorities have been adopted. There are goals related to mobility. There are goals related to accessibility, equity, climate change. So all of these have been documented in a series of documents that you see on the slide here. One of the key things that we have done is projecting the growth that this region can anticipate. We currently in our region are around 6 million people. We anticipate adding 1.2 million people in the next 25 years. That's the size of the entire city of Austin or Philadelphia, if you will. That is the amount of growth that this region anticipates. We have currently about 3.4 million jobs. We anticipate adding another 800,000 jobs. So that's the anticipated growth. All of that growth is going to place demands on our transportation system, transit system, and highway system. Next slide. And in our region, even today, without transit, we will not be able to meet the demands of our population and of our businesses in meeting their travel demands. Transit is a critical component of our system. Secondly, the region's economy is tied with transit. Right around the transit stations in our region, 70% of all the jobs are within half a mile. 60%, that's almost 2/3 of our population live within half a mile of a metro station. About 9.4, close to $10 billion in business output is supported by transit. So transit is critical in the Metropolitan Washington region for the system that we have today, for the people who live here, for the businesses here, and for the commercial activities. And it also is critical for the growth that we expect to come our way in the next 25 years. Next slide. One of the nice things about the Metropolitan Washington region is it is very rich with transit services. We have 12 different bus systems. We have one urban rail system, the Metro, and we have 2 commuter rail systems, MARC and VRE. And then we will soon be adding the light rail, the purple line system to it. And we have 40. So there is a wealth of options for our residents, for our business people, for people who visit our region. There's a wealth of options. So it's a good thing. But at the same time, they're all managed by independent agencies. We have 14 different agencies operating this. They do coordinate, but we find that the coordination can be further optimized. Currently, when you're using the transportation, particularly the transit system, it doesn't feel like it is a seamless system. Administrator Arnold was just citing one of their policies of children 12 and under riding free. That's excellent. But that is not the same threshold for age limit in Virginia or in the District of Columbia. So if your child is going to visit grandma from DC to Maryland, they probably could ride for free in Maryland, but not in the District of Columbia. That sort of thing. So there are opportunities for this different transit agencies to coordinate so that the user feels that it is seamless, that the user sees using transit is very easy as opposed to very complicated. I might as well drive. That's the idea. Next slide. So one of the things, previously I said we have a wealth of transit systems. They were doing great, and COVID had a huge impact on all of our transit systems. The ridership was decimated, but credit to the state DOTs and the local jurisdictions, they did not scale back the investment into their transit systems. They kept the light on, as it were, and we started building back the ridership. Today, the region's bus systems are at pre-COVID level. Now we need to bring it back on a growth path. But the transit system, particularly the metro transit system, is still not at the pre-COVID level. So one of the big things that all of our transit systems experienced was loss of revenue. So with the COVID impact, there was loss of revenue. But with our metro system, there was an inherent problem that got exacerbated due to COVID. And that is our metro system was looking at inadequate funding for the state of good repair, for maintaining the system, for replacing the aging signal system. So which directly affects the safety and reliability of the metro system. So Metro had estimated that starting fiscal year 2029, which would be July 1 of 2028, Metro would run out of money to invest in state of good repair and maintaining the system. So as we are gaining ridership back, now would not be the time to have questionable safety and reliability of the transit system. So that was the structural issue that Metro brought to the region and said, what are we going to do in terms of finding more money so that we can keep the system safe and reliable? And they came up with an estimate of how much they would be needing. Next slide. So this is the background in which COG and its members, all of the Maryland jurisdictions who are involved here, Maryland State Department of Transportation, MTA, Virginia State Department of Transportation, and Virginia Department of Rail and Public Works, DC, everybody got together and said, we are going to have to address this issue of Metro, of VRE, and of MARC, and all the bus systems, and let us understand what the issues are. Then let us quantify the need. When I say the need, the financial need, as well as need to improve collaboration. And then let us come up with a specific set of actions we are going to take to address this issue. That task was given to a task force that was established, and it was called the DMV Moves. And the task force was informed by two advisory groups, a government partner advisory group, which was made up of all of your transit agency representatives, as well as your CAOs and your CFOs. And then we also had a community partner advisory group where we included chambers of commerce, the business entities, the labor union representatives. And so these two advisory groups, over a period of 18 months, started understanding what the issues are, what the needs are, what the opportunities are, and they would advise the DMV Moves task force, which then developed an action plan. Next slide. So here's a copy of the DMV's action plan. There are a couple different elements within this action plan that I will draw your attention to. I'm going to put in the chat the link to DMV moves, and you'll be able to access the entire plan in detail. I won't go over all of it. Next slide. So there are 4 parts to the DMV moves action plan. Part 1, we need to reinvest in the metro system, provide them with capital funding so that they can make investments to upgrade their transportation, their signal system and their rail system, so that we will have a safe and reliable transportation on the metro system. And they have estimated regionally between Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia, they would need $460 million each year, starting fiscal year 2029. And that funding would have to grow at about 3% per year so that it keeps up with inflation. The second thing was our region's transportation system. As the demand grows, we cannot be expanding metro everywhere, but we need to make use of the other assets we have, particularly the bus system we have. So providing a regional network of priority buses that operate at high speed, high density, and high frequency is the way to go. And they have proposed a plan to do that. The plan is being developed in further detail, so we don't have a cost estimate. But that is the second action that we as a region will have to work. And the vision for this priority network bus is these buses would cross jurisdictional boundaries so that you don't have to get off one bus when the jurisdiction boundary comes upon the bus and then move over to another bus. It will simply be a single seat service that you could do. The third element of the plan is the local buses that I just talked about. We worked with them to come up with an estimate. Currently, they are able to expand their service if they had more money. So whether it's a ride-on bus or the bus in Prince George's County or the commuter bus from Frederick County, they could all operate more frequencies if they had more funding, which means the mobility needs of our system would be better met. But they would need about $65 to $80 million per year to be able to expand their service. And then, of course, MARC and VRE, they too have additional funding needs. And just on their operating side, they believe if they had more than about $60 million per year, they could provide more service. But then there are also long-term investments that MARC and VRE would need. And those are laid out in their growth plans, but we haven't finalized the cost estimate for that. So those are the 4 components of the DMV Moves action plan. Next slide. One of the elements of this action plan, earlier I gave the example of having consistent age threshold for when kids could ride free on our buses. There are 6 different areas where something like that needs to be done. This is what we are calling regional transit integration. And whether it is identifying service standards, you have some systems that are only peak hour, peak day, work day. You have other systems which is only weekends. So we need to have a consistent service guideline so that our residents are able to consider transit as an option, whether they're going to work or whether they're going to visit their grandparents or grandchildren. So there are 6 broad areas. And the Transportation Planning Board that I mentioned earlier was asked to take the responsibility to convene these 14 different agencies and start working on specific actions to take on all of those 6 areas. And that work has just begun. So these are areas where we will get service efficiencies. We will also get cost efficiencies. Next slide. And earlier I mentioned one of the big asks is the $460 million in new funding. Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia have all who served on the DMV Moves task force. Delegate Corman served on this task force. Senator Augustine served on the DMV Moves task force. So they have taken that ask and they are working through their own legislative process. And we understand that there are a couple of bills that has been introduced in the Maryland General Assembly, House Bill 386 and Senate Bill 281, which is fully consistent with the recommendation coming out of DMV Moves plan. It talks to Maryland's portion of the 460 million in new revenue that will have to be raised. Virginia is doing the same thing. DC, we understand, already has a sales tax increase that they enacted. That funding would be available to provide DC's contribution towards this 460 million. So this is certainly something that the Council of Governments endorses and supports. And we hope that as the General Assembly session continues, we are able to realize this contribution to Metro. Next slide. That is a quick overview of where DMV Moves is and the four components and how some of the work activities that this caucus and its members are working on, particularly on funding for Metro, fits into that. So with that, I'm happy to pause. We can take questions now, or we can have my colleague Tom present on these roadway safety initiatives.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any hands up, but this is your chance. All right, I don't see anybody with questions, but so Tom, if you want to go ahead, and then we'll check for questions after.
Sounds good. All right. So in addition to the Metro funding, automated traffic enforcement reciprocity is another issue that is currently being considered. I'm going to give a little background. And actually, a couple weeks ago, my colleague Janie Nam gave testimony on this issue because there are a couple of bills currently being considered, House Bill 249 and Senate Bill 173 on automated enforcement reciprocity. So just to take a step back, TPB, Conti talked about our role in the region. Road user safety has been a key priority. And more recently, we've completed a few studies. So we did a comprehensive inventory of safety strategies being employed around the region. But despite the safety focus, the region's falling short of meeting targets for reducing roadway fatalities and serious injuries. And so enforcement is one of those key strategies. And specifically, when we say automated enforcement, we're talking about speed cameras, red light cameras in particular. And those are already being used around our region. But one issue we have is that there's different legal frameworks in Maryland, DC, and Virginia that prevent reciprocity in terms of enforcement, or in other words, paying a ticket across state lines doesn't currently happen if it's through a camera. You do have reciprocity when someone is pulled over by a police officer and given a ticket. There is reciprocity in that case, but we're talking about the automated enforcement. And so, for example, we have a fact here: between 2019 and 2024, Virginia and Maryland vehicles account for 81% of all vehicles with 40 or more outstanding tickets in the District of Columbia. So they have a big issue in terms of enforcement, but it goes in both ways. I'm sure some of the Maryland jurisdictions have Virginia and DC residents who also have tickets. And so again, we recently presented this to the TPB, and one of the things we wanted to emphasize is how this is a proven countermeasure, meaning it does help give you better safety outcomes. And that's important because in the district, there's been some questioning of whether there should be automated cameras from the U.S. Congress. And so I think having this information on the effectiveness on outcomes is really important. We do have a white paper on our website if you want to learn a little bit more about this, but here are a few of the highlights. So on crash reduction, we cite both cases from our region, also across the country, and then even internationally. But across the board, having automated enforcement reduces crashes by a pretty significant percentage, particularly those most serious crashes. So as you can see, in the range of 20 to 30%, just generally. And in addition to the crash reduction on speed management, that's another area where we've seen some really good improvement. So locally in places like Montgomery County, and also some of the Virginia jurisdictions, we've seen reductions in speeding. And I should note that speeding's been one of those other issues where we've seen behavioral changes since the pandemic that have contributed to some of the outcomes where we've seen fatalities going in the wrong direction over the last 6 years. So we're hoping that continuing to focus on enforcement will help give us better outcomes. So thanks very much. And I guess I'll say, since it's the Transit Caucus, let's keep in mind that everyone who rides transit is a pedestrian at some point in their trip. So again, road safety does matter to all of us. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. And the Transit Caucus considers pedestrian safety one of our important priorities. I think we focus a lot on that. So thank you very much. Really appreciate your work and this presentation. Does anybody have questions for either of the COG speakers? Well, we're a quiet bunch today. All right, great. Well, I guess we will give everybody back 15 minutes of your time. And thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate your being here and your work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And so everybody have a good day.